Is a little bit of both data-driven marketing and marketing-driven data. The first fact I want to talk about today is that we all know that it's stupid to make marketing decisions without data. It's also a little bit dumb to waste your time on sifting through the hordes and hordes of data if it doesn't affect your marketing decisions. You hear a lot about big data today. You hear people promising you the world with big data, and you hear people saying it's overblown, it's a fad, and it's not going to help us at all. Let me just show you a little bit kind of the scenario and things that are happening right now. One is that some of our old school data sources are going through a bit of a rough time. So we used to be dependent in marketing on cookies and pixels and things like that to optimize user experiences, to target them and things like that. Pixel, of course, being just a little teeny transparent image that goes on your page so you can download a cookie on someone's computer, and based off of if that cookie's presence and things that you store with that, you can customize the experience on your site and bidding on ads in other places. But there's a lot of things that have been happening with privacy and with cookies. In the European Union, the privacy rules are getting much more and more strict, and in the browser world, third-party cookies are being blocked more and more frequently. So the old school way of utilizing data is getting scary and is starting to run its course. Another fact I want to talk about today is that marketers, shifting gears a bit, we live in a bit of a bubble. If I were to, this is actual data that there's a huge statistical probability that if you're working in digital marketing, you're familiar with at least 80% of the terms on here. And while you're familiar with these terms, people who aren't working in digital marketing aren't familiar with most of those terms. But even though, and this affects us as we do marketing for brands that we work with, is we see the world through our own lens, and we know that there's a bit of a bubble, but we think that we can see through that. But usually, we're wrong. We're informed by our own experiences, the things that we have. Georgetown's done a lot of studies in their cultural center, in their Center for Cultural Competence, on what exactly culture is. They describe culture as being like a person who's being observed through a one-way mirror. Everything you see is from your own perspective. And most of our culture resides in our own heads, which makes it invisible to us. So what that means is when you're pitching an idea and you're thinking of what you're going to do in a campaign, it sounds great to you, but that doesn't mean that it's going to sound great to the audience that you're trying to reach. So psychologists call that internalizing of our own culture and norms. They call it internalizing, and it often makes our own culture invisible to us, which causes a lot of problems to us. All right, so in understanding the culture, I wanted to show you just a little ways that with the amount of data that we have right now that's available to us, that we can utilize big data to break that pattern of those bubbles and help us to get insights to our audience that we can use in a lot of different ways. So using publicly available data from social media, from search trends that Google and Bing puts out in search volume data, and a statistical econometric model, you can data mine all of those things and get really interesting insights. So I thought it'd be interesting to look a little bit about one of the most secretive groups, and also the ones who use a lot of big data against us day in and day out at the NSA. What can we learn from big data about the NSA? So to start with here, I've got, you won't be able to, with the screen, you can't see anything here, but I've got a whole bunch of terms right here. This is how correlated they are to people who work for the NSA, and this is how correlated they are to people who work for the CIA. And inside of those, you've got a whole bunch of things that are really specific to that. Zoom in just a little bit here. You can see Cryptologic, University of Maryland, University College, Indian Head, Maryland, Clear Connections, Fort Meade, Maryland, which is where the NSA headquarters are. If I just zoom real quick, here's a little word cloud of some of Google keywords that the NSA frequently is using. So we saw the word cloud of marketers. This is a word cloud of day in and day out things that if you work for the NSA, you are searching for, you use these terms. Now, without knowing anything and never working in that industry, from big data, you're able to immerse yourself in that culture without any human intelligence. Other things here, you've got intelligence careers, clear jobs. Also from that data, we're able to visualize and see where in the US people are searching for those terms most often. It's interesting to see that we know about NSA operations that are over here, but publicly, there's no public knowledge of NSA operations that are going on in New Mexico or Arizona, where you can see a little bit there, and in Colorado. So there's, based off of people's search behaviors, you can see classified, confidential information that nobody else is supposed to know about because of the search behaviors of these employees. Now let's look at some other interesting things. These are TV shows that the NSA likes to watch. So the NSA really likes House of Cards, they like Veep, they like The Wire, they like Meet the Press, and the CIA likes Kitchen Confidential and Iron Chef. And you can contrast some of the differences between them. Let's look at websites and filter and just look specifically at websites that NSA visits. So you've got a lot of them bank at Andrews Federal Credit Union. There's a lot of .gov and other kind of generic websites that you see in here that if you go and visit those, you can see, okay, this fits with that industry. Or let's look at the hotels that the NSA stays at. So here's 10 hotels that from this data set say that the NSA is likely to be staying at these hotels. Now, an interesting fact with this is my little sister, when she was finishing college, she went and interviewed for an internship at the NSA a year or so ago. And when they flew her out there for her meetings, she stayed right here at one of these 10 hotels. Out of the thousands and thousands of hotels in the DC metro, based off of big data, you can identify the hotels that they're putting either their own employees or the people that they're flying in, the hotels that they use regularly on a regular basis. Now, this is probably a huge national security risk that all of this stuff is out there and that someone like me could figure this out. So we'll hopefully keep that quiet a bit. But it's interesting. Here's the hotels where CIA employees stay at. And when they're using their points based off of all of their other travel, these are the hotels that both of them like to stay at. So that, while the NSA data is interesting, how can we use that practically? So everyone in here has probably been through some sort or listened to some sort of people who've gone through a persona workshop where you build kind of a snapshot of the person that you're trying to reach, and usually the science that goes behind that is just, I know a guy who's kind of like this, and you start just filling in stuff and saying, okay, this is the person that we're trying to target. While it's kind of helpful and kind of fun to go through those exercises, they're completely useless if you don't have actual data that goes with this. But from the amount of data that we generate today, you can populate those personas with actual real facts, as specific as what brands of cars they drive, what TV shows they watch, what movies they watch, what websites they go to and don't go to. It's amazing the amount of data that you can get. Some other interesting things that you can do is as you merge this data with your other data sources that you have. So here, we'll take some of this data that we have for Toyota, and what we're looking at here is, this is how their affinity towards the Toyota brand, and up here is how likely they are to be in the market for a new car, or for purchasing a vehicle. The color is how likely they are to be wanting to purchase a brand new car. Now this is for like 500,000 keywords and phrases that just harvested from what Google has. But when we combine that with referring data that you can get from your own first-party systems through Google Analytics or Adobe or other data sources, you can get some really interesting insights. So here are organic keywords that Toyota's getting to their website and where they plot on this measure. So a lot of these ones up here are good keywords. They like Toyota and they're likely to be wanting to buy a new car. These ones down here, they're probably not going to be customers who are going to be making a purchase anytime soon. These guys are going to make a purchase, but it's not going to be a Toyota necessarily. And these ones really like Toyota, but they're not going to be buying a new car. They're either looking for parts for their old one or a used car, but they're not going to be the ones that you're looking there. And behind that, grayed out that you can't see, is just a bunch of the other keywords that may be relevant. Here are paid keywords that Toyota is doing right now in their paid campaigns. Unfortunately, the bulk of their paid campaigns are down here in that quadrant, which means that they're probably wasting a lot of money on those paid campaigns. There's a few of them that are up here that you can see. There's a lot of dots that don't have labels on them up here. These are the right keywords to be targeting if you're trying to reach someone who's looking for to buy a new Toyota. Now this here is all of those merged together, as well as other keywords that Honda or Ford or several other car manufacturers are using that would likely be good keywords for Toyota to use. So I'll call those ones ignored keywords. And you can see that and the size of the dot is the search volume each month for those keywords. So there's a huge untapped potential that they have here in bidding on other words that they normally probably wouldn't think of. And then if I were to filter those and look just specifically at people who are shopping for a specific model of car, this is just zooming in and looking at people who are looking to buy a Toyota Sienna. So most of those keywords are up here in this top quadrant. But if we zoom in and look at those, most of these keywords don't have anything to do with Toyota or with a Toyota Sienna. But they are statistically correlated to the type of people who want to buy one of those cars. So you can reach those people through your contextual display ads and things like that, where you can use contextual targeting. And rather than just using super expensive cost per click words like buying a new car where you're going to be paying $20 for a click for that, you can get things like cat breeds, where you're going to be paying 5 cents for a click based off of these words, and you can arbitrage the system. And you know what, if you reach a cat lady who's not looking for a Toyota, it doesn't matter because you paid 3 cents for it, but there's a 90% probability that you're reaching someone who is interested. So the reward that you get versus the waste in doing things like this is huge. Let's look at some other ways that big data can help you out. So informing your creative. So here's, if you just start typing Cisco, your auto-compete will be one of the main products that people are looking for is the Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client. In human words, it's a VPN so that your employee, you can log into your network at work without everybody seeing what you're doing. Cisco's made it really easy for us who aren't super technical though with a at-a-glance PDF document that you should share with decision makers at your company. The decision makers who of course don't know anything about those products. So if we zoom in and actually look at the words that they use here in their at-a-glance materials, which is supposed to be digestible by anyone, as you read through this, does anyone have a clue what this is talking about? You have no idea what all of these acronyms and these things mean, and business to business, especially literature, is just full of this stuff. Because you write this stuff, and it makes perfect sense to you because you're in this day in, day out, every second of the day, and you read through this and you know exactly what everything's talking about. So in fact, if we were to look at that, run all of this data through a segment of people who work for Cisco based off of online behavior, the brighter the red, the higher the correlation here. So that whole thing is full of Cisco employee buzzword jargon. Almost every word in here in those paragraphs have a super huge high correlation to Cisco employees. Now if we were to create a segment of likely customers, this is based off of the digital fingerprint of people who are actually searching for the product. And green means things that they understand and that they're looking for. So you've got a few good hits here. You've got authentication, you've got web security, you've got this 802.AE, which is a security protocol, but everything else in here is wah, 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 wah. So there's nothing in there that your potential customers are going to get out of your literature. So using big data and tools like this, you can send your copy back to your copywriters and say, start over, use these lenses. If you have anything that's bright red in here, that's a red flag, and you need to make sure that we have to say it that way. And if you do have to say it that way, you better put some parentheses in there and put it in human understanding into words that other people are going to get. Anytime that you get this red stuff here. So this is a huge help to creatives, and it's all based off of data that we give them every day through Google and through social, but nobody's using it yet. All right, so kind of just to wrap things up here is, as marketers, we need to be both, keep the artistic side, but we need to add the scientific side. And even if we're not to the point where we're going to let data take the driver's seat, you better at least be riding shotgun. And that's my presentation for today. Thank you so much, and I hope it was interesting and informative.